Hey guys, welcome back to Heavy Metal Horizons. And what is this? We're back in the 1940s. Ham radio is in the mainstream news a lot, and World War II aircraft, some aircraft that were actually used in the D-Day invasion, are being used again to help provide relief to the recent hurricane victims. Okay, so in this video, there's two recent news articles that I want to share with you guys, but to be clear, these two articles are two of many similar articles right now. Now look, I know if I'm talking to a bunch of other hams, ham radio is nothing new. You are probably already on the radio today. But to have people who normally know nothing about ham radio and are not involved in it in any way, to have them talking about ham radio, that's kind of a big deal considering it's 100+ years after the development of amateur radio. Now, the second article, the second thing I'm going to talk about is that, yeah, some C-47s, Douglas DC-3s, the military version of that, are actually being used today to help some of the victims of Hurricane Helen recently. And they're not just like parked somewhere on display trying to raise money, but they're actually transporting supplies for the victims. So we'll go ahead and get into this. I'll show you all the details and I'll show you these news articles. But of course, guys, real quick, if you enjoy radio, cars, and aviation, that's what we do here at Heavy Metal Horizons. And so if you like that stuff and you have not already subscribed, please consider subscribing right now. Okay, so let's look at the first article here about ham radio. Okay, so here is the headline here. Forget cell phones, amateur radio shines in the wake of Helena. An operator and a woman desperate for reassurance share their stories. Iredell County, North Carolina, Helena knocked out power across the Carolinas, resulting in cellular and internet outages. But when modern technology fails, wireless radios shine. We have a special mission, and that is to provide emergency communications in disasters, said Dan Guitro, a licensed amateur radio operator in Iredell County, who is known to his fellow ham radio enthusiasts as K2DMG, that's his call sign, obviously. But amateur radio operators, also known as ham radio operators, stepped up to offer a helping hand. We don't need modern technology for amateur radio, Guitro explained. We need a battery, a generator, something to power a radio, and you can have communication anywhere in the world. That's how Guitro has been able to coordinate welfare checks and emergency broadcasts after Helena. We are still taking reports from people in areas who have not heard from first response, he told WCNC Charlotte on Wednesday. It's a radio network Callan Holmes said she is grateful for after ham radio operators helped her reach her 93-year-old grandfather, grandfather in Cedar Mountain, North Carolina. They had lost power. We knew that. We had tried to get in touch with them. Service is bad, Holmes explained. Holmes' father and brother decided to make the drive from Alabama to pick up their loved one. She shared how they tapped into the network. I was listening to the ham radio, writing down every single street that they could take, she said. A lot of reports were coming over the air saying, this road's closed. The radio communications allowed them to make it safely and get Holmes the reassurance she needed. Hearing that they were alive and well was so great, she said. Seeing him in person was amazing. I was able to give him a big hug. It is reunions like this that fuel Guitro through long days. As long as there's a need out there, I'll be right here in this seat to help folks. Okay, so you can tell by the way this is written, right, that the journalists or the people writing the article, they're not really, they're not hams themselves. They're not really familiar with this stuff. They're having to kind of over-explain the fact that also known as a ham radio operator, amateur radio operator, things like this. But this is not only a wonderful thing that they're doing, but this is incredibly good PR for ham radio. This is the kind of stuff that not only keeps people involved who are already in it, but gets the new generation involved. Somebody can read this and this will motivate them to learn about ham radio, get their license, and then they can be part of this. And who wouldn't want that? Okay, so being a ham myself, I think, of course, everybody should have a basic radio, and hopefully they can even learn how to use it. But let's talk a little bit more about that later on. I want to go ahead and get into the second news article here about the aircraft that are being used for the hurricane relief. So let's check this out. Okay, so here's the second article here. From The Aviationist, historic U.S. military aircraft join Hurricane Helena relief operations. C-47 Skytrains, Placid Lassie, and Chalk 40, and a pair of UH-1 Hueys are among the many unique aviation assets helping to deliver supplies and aid in the wake of Hurricane Helena. It goes on here. Hurricane Helena left a trail of devastation along the east coast of the United States. Stepping up to the plate are two World War II veterans, Placid Lassie of the Tunison Foundation in Oxford, Connecticut, and Chalk 40 of the Liberty Foundation in Douglas, Georgia. Doing some of the heaviest lifting are Vietnam War veteran Huey helicopters of the Army Aviation Heritage Foundation from Hampton, Georgia. Placid Lassie, the pride of the Tunison Foundation, is a veteran of Operations Neptune, D-Day, Market Garden, Repulse, and Varsity. Lassie, on her way to Toca, Georgia, sorry if I'm getting these names wrong here, for the Currahee Military Weekend, volunteered to carry 2,500 pounds of relief supplies to Rutherfordton, North Carolina. Got a photo there from, was this from Instagram? Can we look at the other ones here? Look at this. Check out all this stuff. So they're actually transporting all this stuff. The aircraft is being used for as a transport aircraft, for its original intention. So the article goes on here. Chalk 40 of the Liberty Foundation is also a World War II veteran, but served with the Royal Air Force as KG-395. The airplane took part in Operation Mallard, towing a glider for the airborne operation in support of D-Day. She later went on to be fitted with skis to support the recovery of the P-38 Lightning Glacier Girl in Greenland. That whole thing is an incredible story on its own. I'll put a link for something about that in the video description below. Anyway, it goes on. It is now painted as C-47A Chalk 40 that participated in the American airborne effort on D-Day. Chalk 40 participated in the Military Aviation Museum's Warbirds Over the Beach air show this weekend. The air show featured a food and supply drive that ended with the C-47 being loaded up for transport to an area affected by Hurricane Helena. By the end of the show, 5,000 pounds of supplies were delivered to the Lincoln County Airport in North Carolina. The SkyTrain also delivered supplies to areas affected in southern Georgia on their way to the Virginia Beach Air Show. Okay, so they had the aircraft on display at the air show and then used that to gain attention and put the money together and the supplies, and then once they had the supplies, they loaded them up on the aircraft and flew them over to North Carolina. And remember, guys, these aircraft are 80 plus years old. Now, I recently flew on another D-Day aircraft. It was actually not quite a C-47, but it's a I think it's a 53 Skytrooper, so it was one of the ones that was specifically designed for parachute operations. Anyway, I flew on this one, D-Day Doll, which is based at Riverside, California, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. And these aircraft are kept flying really for exhibition historical reasons, right? You want people to be able to experience these actual aircraft that took part in World War II. You can buy a ticket on it, and the proceeds of the tickets go to the museum, or in the case of D-Day Doll, they go to the Commemorative Air Force, right, which keeps the aircraft flying. But just that alone was an incredible experience. And I can just imagine for the people that had bought rides on one of these, like Placid Lassie, one of these planes, now that not only were involved in World War II, but now have gone on to help hurricane victims. I mean, what a cool thing. Okay, so obviously they don't mention this in the article, and this is a bit of a speculation, but educated speculation on my part. I know the crews, the volunteer crews and everything of those aircraft are just jumping at the chance to do something like this because, of course, they love the aircraft and keeping it flying today, and the history, the way that aircraft helped people in the past. But now to be able to take that same aircraft and help people today in current times, I mean, I'm sure that's a dream come true for those crews involved. Okay, now the other thing I want to talk about is it is, really, really affordable to get one of these basic handheld ham radios, basic HT, right? This is the TID Radio H3, really small, very affordable, under $50 for this radio. And you can use it on VHF and UHF as a transceiver, but also you can pick up aircraft. You can listen to aircraft frequencies with this as well. Now I've got an extra little hand mic, and realistically, the thing you probably want to do, these basic whip antennas, they're not that bad for a handheld unit. But if you get, I think I've got one here. If you get one of these extended, one of these larger antennas, and these don't cost very much, $12 or something, maybe 15. If you get one of these, it's really going to help your range considerably, both for transmission and reception. So if you get this set up, and if you're in an emergency situation, if you can climb to the top of your roof, or maybe climb up a tree or a hill nearby or something, this could make the difference as to whether or not you're going to get the help that you need, especially the radios that pick up like the NOAA weather channels as well. The Quansheng UVK6 is another great choice. And I did a video recently talking about a basic emergency radio kit. And the whole thing was like around $50, depending on where you buy the components and so forth. But it kind of included two separate radios. One was a solar-powered shortwave radio, basic broadcast radio plus the shortwave bands, but it's solar-powered, and it also has an internal battery. And what you can do is you can charge it with the solar panel, and then you can use the internal battery as a USB power bank to power something else. Really cool little radio, costs like $20, $25. And then the other radio I was recommending was like a Quansheng K6 or K5 or something. But I think, the TID Radio H3, one of these, is another good choice. And between those two, you can really have just excellent situational awareness in an emergency situation, and you even have the opportunity to contact somebody for help if you need it. Okay, guys, but for everybody watching out there, what do you guys think of all this stuff? Of course, it makes me happy to see ham radio in the news in a good way, and also the same thing with all the vintage aviation organizations and all that stuff. Aviation has such a PR problem. You almost only hear about aviation when there's a crash. So to see mainstream news reporting on something like this is really, really encouraging. But let me know what you think about all this stuff down in the comment section below, and in the video description below, I'm going to have links for the original articles if you want to go and check those out yourself. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you soon.